Welcome back, Star Wars fans, to another episode of Coruscant Radio Underground, where we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about episodes 5 and 6 of Andor. I see we got a few people over here in the chat. Before he runs off, I want to say Roe's actually in the chat. And I don't know if you know this, but Roe is a Star Wars shill that doesn't understand Star Wars at all.
I've heard that. No understanding whatsoever, just a blind fan.
Well, then he fits in perfectly with me. So that's good.
All right. Well, thanks for being in the chat, Ro. Hope you're able to hang out for a little bit. But as we've been doing the last few weeks, I'm joined again tonight by Lunar Girl and Dragon Buddy.
Hi.
Hey guys, thanks for coming on and giving me somebody to talk about this stuff with. And you're gonna so I'm gonna go ahead and admit up front, I'm really glad y'all are here tonight because I think y'all are gonna be the more positive voices in the room, particularly on episode 5.
Right.
I loved episode 6.
Keep it slow.
I loved episode 6. I honestly think that episode 5 is one of the worst episodes of any Star Wars show.
Oh, ouchies.
Yeah.
Ouchies. Maybe we should get the shill in the chat up here with us.
So Book of Boba Fett has a lot of flaws. I never checked my watch during an episode of Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I found myself checking my phone, checking my watch. I was bored out of my mind during episode 5. And It's not that there's anything, it's one of those things you could go, oh yeah, it's an objectively good show.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is. I mean, as much as a show can be objectively good, I think that when we go, oh, this movie's objectively good, we're not really saying anything.
Right.
Those words don't mean anything because objectively good is a cultural thing that shifts all the time. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so I don't actually like that, using that. But I think that there are a lot of things. I think it's still a really well-made show. But I think there's been some writing flaws particularly in the pacing. And the thing is like, I know I have friends that love it. They love the pacing. They like shows like that. They like to sit back and just absorb it all. And I'm going, something needs to happen. And I think it's because I'm watching several. And I think what disappointed me the most was up until episode 5, I was staying up and watching the releases at 2 a.m. my time.
Right.
I stayed up and watched that at 2 a.m. and it made me mad.
Oh no!
It can be fair. I think 1, 2, and 3 was a good. You know what it is? Is the streaming is they're following an older model of dropping an episode a week.
Yeah,
and we don't have to follow that format. You can do it any way you want. You know, this is one giant experiment, and I think 4 and 5 you could have easily have mixed together. A little bit. It would have kept the people that are worried about the pacing. I'm one of those people that I'm looking at every little thing and taking it all in and then rewatching it again and catching the little Easter eggs, the little nuances that how they're speaking to each other and whatnot. That to me the pacing wasn't an issue, but I'm a slow burn kind of guy. I like that.
Yeah.
I like to have a little bit.
There are some shows like 1 and 2 were slow. They were slow episodes, no way around it, but I still enjoyed them a lot. I enjoyed it. My problem because we still got a lot of information. We got a lot of setup, and then episode 3, there was some payoff. But then when you go back to episode 4, and they did exactly, we didn't really talk about this a lot, but they actually did when we got to the end of episode 3, I said, I really hope that we didn't go through 2 episodes of setup, finish an arc, and now we have to go back and do another episode or 2 of setup.
Right.
And that's exactly what we did.
That's kind of what we did. Yes.
And one episode of that, I think episodes 4 and 5 is one really good episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Together they made a great arc, or at least a great build up to it.
I feel like episode 5 kind of like circles the drain. It's like we set up all these points on episode 4 and then we just circled those same points in episode 5. We didn't really
yes.
do anything new. We just kind of said these people don't like these people, and this is going on over here, and we kind of just readdressed those situations with information we didn't really need.
Ro makes a good point with episode 5. There's no wasted dialogue in that entire episode. Every bit of dialogue points to something of import, whether it be the feelings behind the Mothmas and their family unit, the way Luthen is speaking, the fact that we just bring up the fact that, Mr. Mothma has no idea who the driver is. And just those little bits of knowledge those are the things that I kind of really soaked up. You get a real feel for it. But, is it necessary towards the story of Cassian Andor? Not at the moment.
Yeah.
There was a lot of focus on families in episode 5 too. Thanks, Ro.
Ro hasn't realized yet that I'm always up that late. I mean, surely y'all always notice that when you come into the chat on every morning, that the last post every day was me.
Yep. Absolutely.
Anybody still awake? Nope.
Well, what I was going to say is it focused a lot on families to really show how the upcoming events are going to affect them. Like when they went into the Mothma family, we have a teenage daughter who's talking back just like teenage daughters do. The mother-daughter fight is there, as always is. You can ask DB with 2 daughters that we had. There was always talking back, and there was always me looking at DB like, thanks for the support, So they're absolutely normal with the. And then we had we can't forget Cyril and his mother. And his mother making him some blue Cocoa Puffs for breakfast and pushing the tray of dragon fruit, like, eat your fruit, Cyril. And then, like, do you have any plans for what you're going to do in your life? Do I have to talk to Uncle Carmine or whatever his name was? Like, I'll have him get you a job. What are you going to do here? Are you going to be here long? What are you doing with your life? So, like, we have the family set up with those guys.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of neat.
I do think, so one of the better new canon Star Wars books is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. It might still be, outside of the Thrawn stuff, it might be the best Star Wars book. And I'm not going to go too deep into that, but everybody's pretty aware of my feelings about the new Star Wars books. I've quit buying them.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
and that hurt my feelings. I've been reading Star Wars books since I was 10 years old when I got the first Thrawn book.
Right.
So it really hurts my feelings to go, I'm not buying any more of these unless an author that I really like writes one.
It just doesn't feel like those books are geared towards my age bracket, I guess you could say. Like,
well, even the adult stuff feels like it's young adult stuff.
It is. That's the feel I get from is that it's a young adult book that's trying to be an adult book, and I can't get into the High Republic. I just can't do it.
It's the quality of the writers.
Yeah,
they've really like there are writers that have written really good books in the new canon, like the guy that wrote I'm going to blank on the name of it, Force Collector.
Right. I heard that was a good one.
Such a good book, and nobody read it.
Great story. Right.
And like almost nobody read that one. And it's easily a top 10 in the new canon.
Yeah. And
it's and my top 10 is pretty much Lost Stars and then the 6 Thrawn books. Like as far or my first 7. So to make that top 10, I thought it was a pretty good book.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, going back to Lost Stars, I feel like what Lost Stars did really well was showed us how this war pulls families and groups of people apart.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a real thing. Our own country underwent that in the Civil War, where families were divided down the middle. It's like, it wasn't just states. There were literally families that fought against each other on either side of the war. And then some of the more tragic stuff, like all the Irish immigrants that had come to this country. And then the ones in the South are looking at the ones across the battlefield fighting for the North and saying, we're fighting for our freedom, and now you're the ones that are going to take it away.
Yeah.
It's like, and so it's that kind of divide where it's people that love each other finding themselves on different sides of a war, of a battlefield.
Yeah.
And I do think that's a really incredibly interesting thing to explore. And I think we've built a good foundation to do that exploring on.
Mm-hmm.
But again, my whole thing is like, it was billed as a spy thriller.
Mm-hmm.
Is kind of what we were sold. And it's like, so some point there's going to be some spying and some thrills, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
It's like Jurassic Park. You know, you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur ride, right?
Yeah, eventually.
Now, I think that episode 6 finally turned the corner and gave us a lot of stuff. That was a
great episode.
But my fear is at the end of episode 6 is that we wiped the slate clean,
right?
And now we got to build it again.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, episode 7 is going to be a standalone episode, and then episodes 8 and 9 will be its own story arc, and then 10, 11, 12 will be back to the 3-part series. So there's a lot of speculation.
That might actually be better.
Yeah,
I mean, part of what,
and there'll be some time jumps here. Like I believe the next one is going to be a time jump to what they're saying is Clone War time, where we're going to see the clone troopers that we saw in the trailers, and that'll be episode 7. So that would be the way to do it, to where we had this, 6-show arc to bring us to where Cassian completed the mission. We can't do that again. Anybody that's worried about pacing, they're out. So we need to keep that. We need to keep it going.
Yeah, and the thing is the guys writing this, the guy directing it, they're movie people, not TV people.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're writing it like a series of movies.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it feels like.
1 through 3 is a movie. 4 through 6 is a movie. Like they're written in arcs that way. And so I'm curious to see. It's why I like, the Mandalorian. I know a lot of people complain about the kind of we've gotten to the point where if you have a standalone episode, it's just immediately dubbed filler.
Right.
But there are episodes that are standalone episodes in the Mandalorian that build tremendous lore on their own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
there are no throwaway episodes because Filoni doesn't do throwaway episodes. If you go back to every story the man ever wrote in Rebels, and everybody went, "Oh, that was a throwaway episode," and then like 3 years later, it comes back around. It's like he doesn't waste anything.
No, it's connected somewhere. You might take a little minute for it to come around, but it's not there for nothing.
Yeah. Filoni does everything for a reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's looking at his story years ahead of time.
Yeah, he's actually got one of those boards at home with like the strings that go everywhere, every which way. Only we don't see that board yet. And oh God, I would love to see that board. Well, I've got like such head cannons right now.
There might be a couple knots when it came to Rodriguez's stuff inside the Manoverse. he's got some knots in the string, but it's still there.
Yeah. So, man.
That's an interesting question, Ro. The first incursion against the Empire, I would say no.
Right. This could have been the first real big one. I mean, they hit a payroll.
This could have been one of the first big ones, but I mean, we've had Saw out there for a while at this point.
Right.
So I would think at this point, in fact, Saw has probably already done whatever it was that he did that made the rest of the people go, I don't want anything to do with him. So whatever Saw did had to have been a pretty big deal.
Oh yeah.
So and then this kind of at the time that we're seeing the Rebels crew making a lot of attacks against Imperial facilities. But this could have been one of the first ones that maybe made the Empire go, okay, we do actually have a problem.
Well, this one, I mean, if you think how much money they stole, it's bankrolling the rebellion for at least a little while. So I would say it's a pretty big hit that they put on them. But I don't think it's the first.
It's not the first, because if you remember little blonde chickie with the little bun in her hair. Can't remember her name.
Deirdre.
I don't remember, but she's been saying this has been happening. There's been isolated incidents all over the place that are following the same setups.
Too random to be random was the words that they used over it.
So it can't possibly be the first incursion, but
yeah. So I think there are probably occurrences of things before, but yeah, I mean, this one I think is obviously a big deal. This one gets the attention of the ISB.
Yeah.
Which the ISB, at least in this show up to this point, has kind of been going, no, don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. You just stay in your lane. We brought you in to work on this. We don't want you thinking about anything bigger. It's above your pay grade. And maybe now they're going to start listening that.
Although I'm really kind of hoping that one of the things we discover along the way is a mole within the ISB.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm hoping someone fairly high up in the ISB, a former Republic officer that's still kind of going, no, don't worry about it.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, we could still run across almost anybody.
Yeah.
It's true.
It does leave it open for a lot of different characters to come into this storyline. And there's a lot of media to draw from to bring characters in. I mean, I was saying from the beginning, this would be a nice way to, at least as a one-off, for Cal Kestis to show up in the time frames that are there. And even into Jedi or mention of Jedi. I like the fact that this show is steering clear of the Jedi. And this is more on the the everyday people aspect of this. Because, with this war going on, these people were forced into either fighting or being, conscripted, being put into slavery, or just downtrodden and forgotten about. So seeing the side of it is that darker side of war. And I'm enjoying seeing it, even just down to the little things that you can see where you have Cassian and the group marching in. Now, this is obviously a small posting on Adani. So you see them walk in and you see the other officers look at them, or the other troops look at them. And it's a half second where it's like I don't think I remember him. But then it's gone. I don't know him. And they just go marching by. And it's that ignorance that, the Empire has it all together. So, we're told what our threat is. So that's where the threat is. It's the Aldani people that we need to worry about and keep in line. It's not going to come from within. The Empire is too good for that.
Right.
That arrogance.
Now, you mentioned that there's room for a lot of people to come in still. But my question to you is, do you really want all those people to come in? I mean, we saw what happened to Book of Boba Fett when people were brought in.
And there's room. I don't
a
think
lot of people said, it's a distraction from the main story. You're taking away from the main character. So do you really want those people to come in? I mean, we know we're already getting Saw, we know we're getting him, but do you really want all those extra people coming in and possibly distracting from the main character of the story?
Well, I mean, so far, I would say that Cassian has kind of only barely been the main character.
Right.
Yeah.
He's probably had fewer lines than almost any character in the show.
That's true. And he's more of the link between all of the things that are going on.
Right. I think Cassian is meant to be our perspective on what's happening. But so far, they've done nothing particularly special with the character. He's barely gotten to do any acting in this.
Right.
So, I mean, he mostly sits around and looks sullen. And so, I mean, there are people, at this point, I don't care. I think we're going to get some really good stuff with him going forward. I know he's a great actor. I'm not worried about it.
Right.
But at this point, if Ahsoka showed up, I don't think it hurts anything with the flow of the show.
As long as it doesn't become something along the lines of the Book of Everybody and Boba Fett. That was the biggest problem with Boba Fett is that we had episodes where he wasn't even in it. You know, and it wasn't even about him. So,
well, I know I was on Andrew's show for Book of Boba Fett, and
I'm not saying I don't like it because of that. I'm just saying that
I know. Andrew and I did discuss like almost 9 months ago now that it was supposed to be a spin-off of The Mandalorian, like The Mandalorian Book of Boba Fett, but then along the way of production and COVID 2020, that part of The Mandalorian kind of got left out, and it was just the Book of Boba Fett, but it was supposed to be an offshoot of The Mandalorian.
I honestly
explains all those characters.
I honestly think what happened, I think Jon Favreau started that off with intentions of being way more hands-on with it.
Absolutely.
It's very clear that Favreau and Filoni were not all that hands-on with it.
No.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know exactly what happened. So my impression is that Filoni and Favreau, in trying to write the next season of The Mandalorian, we screwed up in a couple of steps. We shouldn't have sent Grogu off. We shouldn't have done a couple other things. I think they got way too tied up with the Ahsoka series, Mando season 3, which the trailer looks incredible for, and a couple of other projects that are kind of part of that universe that they're building. And I think in the process of that, I think they kind of took their hands off of Book of Boba Fett and said, this isn't really part of what we're doing anymore. Or at least, you know, it's not critical to what we're doing. I think that's why you had 2 episodes that are basically season 2.5 of The Mandalorian that they squeezed in the middle of it, and they're the best part of the season. And then everything else was left up to other people, and it just fell apart from there because the right people no longer were concerned with where it went.
Right.
And I think that might have been them trying to get too many things going at once. The thing is, I know something happened because when Jon Favreau first pitched his story to Kathleen Kennedy, he pitched a Boba Fett story. Boba Fett was the Mandalorian.
He was going to be the Mandalorian. Yeah, that's what I heard too.
And they immediately said, "You can't do that. Like we don't have like that's not. There's no way to do that with Boba Fett where we have him. There's no good way to do that. So you need to do something different." At which point he sits down with Dave Filoni and they work out that they're just going to create a new Mandalorian character and weave it into Dave Filoni's Mandalorian lore, which is great. And,
I kind of like it.
And so I don't know exactly what went on that caused them to pull back, but I know the fact that Jon Favreau wasn't more heavily involved in the Book of Boba Fett means he didn't just, it's not one he would have walked away from unless he pretty much had to.
Right. I mean, and most of the filming did happen. It was supposed to be released in 2020 and it kept getting pushed back because of the state of the universe. So, but originally it was, I remember talking about it with you, that it was supposed to be part of The Mandalorian, like a little chapter of The Mandalorian, but along the way, it got dropped.
Yeah, they always told us it would be season 2.5 of The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
it kind of meant to be an intermission almost, for, there. And I don't know what happened with it, other than the fact that they got a director that really didn't know how to handle the tone of the Star Wars universe.
And I know everything that happened in the Book of Boba Fett is going to tie into future episodes of The Mandalorian.
Oh, I 100% think that whatever happens in this next season of The Mandalorian is going to lead to Mando calling in a favor from Boba Fett.
Oh yeah.
Right. Oh yeah. This is, I mean, the good thing about them is they're all part of this Mandoverse. That Ahsoka is going to be a portion of it. You know, Thrawn coming in. These are all huge things that all kind of tie in together to where we have our own shows, but they all kind of happen under the same banner, per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as cameos, like one, I don't think that the I'm blanking who's Gilroy. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
think Tony Gilroy wants to do cameos. I think he
right.
wants this to be his own thing. Um, and I think that Tony Gilroy is not as versed in Star Wars. Like he's creating this story to be its own thing.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to see. I'm not totally against cameos. I don't need somebody showing up and stealing the show.
No.
Right.
But
I wouldn't mind seeing a cameo or two,
well,
but
we
I wouldn't
needed a
mind if we
moment.
didn't.
Yeah, we needed a moment where. See, I think we could see some cameos that we're not even thinking about. So just some less Captain Antilles and some other characters like
Yes.
that we've never really spent time with. So they would, yes, technically be a cameo, but we could actually do a lot more with the characters than ever has actually been done with them.
Yeah.
But I think that, see, I really was pitching Ahsoka as, so he really needs, Cassian really, he's still not sold on being part of this rebellion, right?
Right.
He did this for the money, and now he's out. He's gone. Like he's checked out. I don't even know how they're going to find him again. We're going to have to see how that works out.
Yeah.
But I felt like someone like Ahsoka could really, because he does carry the Fulcrum title for a while here, so he's part of that network,
right?
And so I really felt like Ahsoka was the perfect character to bring him into the base, make him see the bigger picture.
Or even Bail Organa, because Bail is the one who's looking for all of these people after everything fell apart after Order 66. He was directly responsible for recruiting Ahsoka. So even seeing that recruiting process, like how he sneaks around and gets information from Mon Mothma, I would love to see. I would love to see that.
So now what I do think they did, and I'm blanking on the character's name, the one that was writing his manifesto.
Oh, that poor little dude. Yeah. The young guy.
Yeah. I'm having
Nemec.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I'm having a really hard time with the names in this.
I am too. You're not alone.
But I got so I think that they basically replaced the need to bring in a character like an Ahsoka or a Bail Organa or someone like that to make him connect to see the bigger picture. I think that they just had him take Nemec's manifesto, and that's going to be the thing that's going to turn him around.
Right. He's going
to possibly be
make him willing to fight for something bigger than himself.
Yeah. Yeah. I would like to see that panel. That would be pretty cool. I am curious to see what Nemec was writing about, because he was, all into this, and very smart young guy. I'm curious. I hated to see him die, but you kind of knew it was coming because, usually the weenie gets it, and he was kind of like the weenie of the crew.
Right.
He was, but often the kind of downtrodden people that appear to be weak can, often he could. I mean, what he's preaching could be more along the lines of what Saw Gerrera preaches. We don't know yet.
Right. Right.
It's sometimes the downtrodden react more harshly. So we don't really know what he was writing yet, and it might turn out that he is more of a disciple of someone like Saw Gerrera.
Right.
The other one that I'm curious to see what happens to is the one chick that they left behind.
Yeah,
I can't remember the wife of the other chick that got away. Center. Thank you. She the last time we saw her is her saying I'll be fine, and she's holding up the family, the
when you
son.
see her walking away all alone now. Did she take them all out?
She couldn't
possibly. I think it's left. I think they're going to leave that up to our imagination.
She couldn't possibly have gotten away. I don't see it happening. I just don't see it happening. Everything went wrong with this whole heist, including don't know his name. You know, the guy who was in charge, he went and had a heart attack and he died. You know, like, yeah.
The
like
head
everything
guy.
went wrong in this heist.
Yeah, it was a lot went on in the heist. Now, just kind of was there anything else specifically in episode 5 before we really move into the heist itself?
I do love the Easter eggs that kind of tie into a lot of the galaxy far, far away. We had mentions of Kessel. We had mentioned of Fondor, which is kind of big for me only because it's where playing the game Battlefront 2, Inferno Squad, which is the main character in Battlefront 2, Iden Versio. After the Battle of Endor, they go back to Fondor. So it was kind of a neat thing to have that mentioned. And then I've slowed this down probably 6-7 times to try to see all the little things that are there. We've got a Wookiee headset or a Wookiee helmet. We've got what could be a Sith Wayfinder and a holocron. We've got...
I saw the holocron.
There was just so many little things that tie to Star Wars lore on a whole that really came out of that episode. That's why I said, as far as pacing goes, rewatching it and kind of absorbing all of it, there was a lot of unsaid things that link a lot of things across the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I mean, I've seen some people saying there are no Easter eggs in this show, and it's like, it's not true at all.
Right.
A lot of it's in the form of just name drops.
Right.
Places. But yeah, just that one moment in the gallery there. I mean, all sorts of really important things scattered around that.
Right. Force Unleashed callbacks, and I mean, it really touched on, for someone who's not inside the Star Wars game as far as Gilroy was, to really kind of pulled some things and subtly added them in to make them a part of this whole galaxy was very well done.
Yeah, I'd like to know who he went to and said, I need artifacts.
Right.
And I need things people will recognize.
I need somebody to tell me what artifacts are the ones that I need.
Right. Well, he went to somebody. It almost makes me think it was Dave Filoni, because it's whoever it was, like, really knew that he was putting things back there that was going to get attention. Now, those prop guys over there at Island,
even down to the Shankara stones from Indiana Jones, you could see them up on the shelf. I mean, it was one of those, like, wow, that's
it's like they just went over to the Lucas vault, to the vault there. And just pulled out all the best stuff.
They have one of those fanboys moments where they drove across the country so they can get to Skywalker Ranch and steal.
Skywalker Ranch.
I actually went back and looked, because after they had the Indiana Jones stuff in there, I really thought there would be a Willow reference, and I don't see one. But with that new show coming out, I really thought there would be something in there.
Yeah.
You know what I would love to see, which really, this is all pure speculation, but I would love to see at the end of a lot of the Disney Plus series, they go ahead and they show, like, the making of, or behind the scenes. I want an exclusive on every single thing that's in that store. Like, I want to see the store and every artifact that is in that little shop.
Well, what would be really cool, and they'll probably never do it when they do things like that, though, would be an interactive gallery.
Yes, that would be so cool. I could move my mouse and I pretend like I'm walking through the store, and spending DB's money.
But that would be really cool. In fact, that would just be a really cool thing for ILM to do with the archive, would be to make an online museum, basically.
That would be so cool. But all we can do is dream.
Yeah.
Vader. Hi, Vader.
So I didn't actually fall asleep, but during episode 5, as I said earlier, I did check my watch an awful lot during that episode, which I don't think I'd ever done during an episode of anything Star Wars before.
It was a lot of setup for the heist itself.
It was actually the one episode we didn't wake up early to see, because I had an early day at work, so we watched it.
Yeah, we both watched it by ourselves.
Episode 6, very glad I woke up. early in the morning to see. And this goes back to this entire show. The production for this show is so much bigger, and at least it feels so much bigger than what we've seen so far.
I do think that's one of the benefits of having a movie guy doing this is he's just like the production values are just better.
Right.
While I think there are flaws in the storytelling at times, I think that the production values are incredibly high on this show.
This is going to sound really sad, but I could have sat there for another hour just watching the Celestial event and like, don't even tell me what happened. Just tell me what happened with the heist. I didn't need to see it. I just wanted to watch the and hang out with all those chanty people.
The chanty people.
Sorry, but that's how I felt. Chant, throw some skins on a fire and be like, yeah, we hate the Empire. Let's watch the sky.
All right, well, let's talk about the heist itself, which is pretty much all we pretty much pick up episode 6 with the beginning of the heist.
Right.
So, and overall, what did y'all think? This was the first episode of this show that I was just like, from start to finish, I loved the episode. Although I do want to point out, since Marisha's not here, Marisha's a music person.
Yes.
And she was like, we got to the end of that. She didn't even really like episode 6.
Right.
And we got to the end of episode 6, and she looked at me and goes, why is this so boring? Is it the music? She said, is it the music?
Right.
She said,
yes.
She's like, is it that the music never has these big moments? There's no
no real crescendos. Yeah.
It's just this steady kind of almost just drone through the back of, background. And I think that's basically what she has decided, is that the music is not doing this show any favors.
The music is unremarkable. I can't even tell you what the theme song is. And usually, like, you could ask DB. I'm huge into music. Like, music is my life. And I'm humming every single Star Wars show that there is. Like, when it comes on, just humming along with it. And I still, after 6 episodes, can't tell you what the theme song is for Andor.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is, but she's not. I don't think I thought that was worth mentioning, because it didn't occur to me that that's what's kind of causing it to feel like it drags, even when stuff's happening.
It's a good point.
Is that the music's just kind of there?
That's part of. I've heard a lot of complaints about how this isn't a Star Wars show, and when you're looking at the sequel trilogy, even the prequel trilogy, you had a score that dictated exactly what was going on musically, as you're watching visually and listening to the dialogue. So in this way, it's more of a background. It's not a character in the show,
right?
As you would see. And
the music was such a huge part of the original trilogy, especially. You go back and look at that and how George Lucas basically built the studio out of the merchandising rights by showing them the movie without the score.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and then you add the score, and it's just a totally different thing. And even Rogue One, which when it came out, people were real mixed on that score. But it ultimately, especially towards the end of that movie, you start getting these big moments in the music that seem to really carry what's happening on screen forward. And and then you go to The Mandalorian, and I defended. Everybody's like, oh, this music's not Star Wars. And I said, well, before, most of our music has been centered around the Empire or the Rebellion, and we've never done music centered around these other groups of people. And so it makes perfect sense. And I think the Mandalorian music is fantastic.
I love the Mandalorian music.
And I think it has grown on people over time. I think even the people that initially went, this isn't Star Wars music, that it grew on them. And I thought, I always defended it, because I said it's perfect for building this. Well, one, you finally have a composer in here to develop Mandalorian themes.
Right.
Because that's ultimately where Filoni wants to go, is he wants to flesh out his Mandalorian stuff, and that's really where we're headed.
And you have this real Western feel to the show, and it's directly related to the theme music behind it. You hear the first 2 notes, you know where we're going with that. You know whose theme it is.
Right. So yeah, it's kind of, but when you get to this, there's no themes that jump out. And when you look at the other things that are on right now, when we look across at what we're going to talk about later tonight, the score for Rings of Power is just phenomenal. It's so big, and it's big when it needs to be big, and it's subtle when it needs to be subtle, and it's a fantastic score.
Yes.
And I don't know if you've tried to listen to that whole score. It's a long score.
Right.
That is something that I should add to my list.
But I got it when it came out. And it's definitely mixed into my playlist. There's a lot of really good themes in that. But yeah, so I think that does hurt it. But I think when we move into, so what did y'all think about the heist? Episode 6, overall thoughts?
Yeah, it's leading up to them finally making the move. Like they've set themselves up. Cassian and company are down on the ground waiting for Val and Cinta to be in place and building that, where we don't know if Val's going to call this and say we quit. And when she says go, it was great from that point on. And then to have the celestial event to come out, unbelievably beautiful. We even got like almost Top Gun-esque shots of them running to the TIE fighters to get into the TIE fighters to shoot off into the colored sky.
Yeah, that was cool.
But then when on the slower end of it,
flying the TIE fighters and they were getting bonked on the windows, with space dust, that was cool.
Yeah. And even the small things where it's, busting in and catching these Imperial guards, completely off kilter, almost a look of, this is a joke, right? Like this isn't really happening. This is why would this happen? Catching them completely off guard to the point where the guy has an open channel to call for help, and he just hesitates and hesitates and hesitates because I shouldn't even have to worry about it.
Right.
I thought the heist was very sloppy. It was suspenseful, but it was like everything that could go wrong went wrong. That's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, I figured we were going to have it. I figured we would have at least one character die.
Yeah.
We did lose more than one player there.
Yeah, we knew the little guy was going to get it. We knew. I think
the sad thing for Nemec was they actually made it out. Like,
yeah,
but just to get basically an adrenaline shot to his heart so he could finish his mission.
That's the only reason why he stayed alive, was like that shot of adrenaline. Like they took that right from
shot him a speedball and he finished out the mission before.
Yeah, like they went all Pulp Fiction on his ass, like yeah.
So I thought, I knew we would lose somebody, and I predicted that we would have a traitor in their midst, which ended up not happening, which is fine. I mean, I think don't make it too predictable. I mean, that's kind of a spy thriller trope. So not my feelings aren't hurt that they didn't do a paint by numbers.
Well, they did slip one in at the end where it didn't happen.
True.
And then Scheme comes in and turns out to be a complete scumbag, and hey.
So I will tell you this, all the debate about does Han shoot first? There's no debate about whether Cassian shoots first.
No,
he doesn't even let you finish your thought.
Right. Yeah. He makes you think you're going to finish your thought, and then you don't.
Yeah.
Another callback to Cassian's life in Rogue One is Nemec's last words are to climb, 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 and those were K2SO's last words to him. In Rogue One. So there was there are little callbacks to where it's linking, his life to where it is in Rogue One, as well as where we are in Star Wars 1 with, the name dropping Echo 1. Even that seems like a subtle hint at, future Star Wars.
Yeah.
Or future timeline anyway.
Yeah.
So things I did like, I know a lot of people are having a problem with the weapons. I'm really not having an issue with the look of the weapons.
Yeah.
I think they could have done a little more with them. It wouldn't have hurt my feelings, but and I'll be honest. The main reason that I hate that they didn't do more with them is for groups like the 501st, which I'm not in, but I know a lot of people that are, including my father.
Right.
Those are not weapons that they're going to be able to make for costumes, for cosplay, and carry anywhere because they look too real.
Too
right. Close. That makes sense. Yeah.
So for that reason, I do hate that they didn't do a little more with them. And they may or may not have done that on purpose. I feel like, well, not just feel like, I've heard more and more directors and writers over the last few years talking about making things as hard as possible for the cosplayers.
Yeah.
And truth be told, having a wife that works in costuming and kind of in that world, like, there's some weird jealousy from that world towards cosplayers.
Right.
Because cosplayers sometimes, and in fact, more than sometimes, I would say a lot of the time, upstage them.
Oh, yeah. Just to see some basic video shots from Comic-Con and the like, there are people that pour their heart and soul into one costume to make it.
Oh, gosh, man. We go to these costume contests at things like Dragon Con, and you get people that have spent the last 6 months building this one thing.
Right.
Like, and the other side of that is, obviously, if you're making things for a movie, you don't get 6 months
for one thing.
Right.
Right.
So, but you have these huge communities of knowledge, and the Matt's right. The high end cosplayers, the things they do are just absolutely
phenomenal,
insane. That's one of my favorite things about the big conventions is seeing this stuff. And, but overall, like, there are things I really like. The TIE fighters, I think, were fun. I think we don't ever get to see TIE fighters really in the launching bays. And I think that's cool because it gives us perspective. When we see things fighting in space, you don't get a feeling of how big those things actually are.
Right.
It's just like when you watch videos of fighter jets in real life, like, and then you stand next to one and go, "Oh my God, this thing's massive."
Right.
Like, you don't think about this one person fighter being absolutely enormous, but they are.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And so I like seeing things like the TIE fighters and getting scale. And for some reason, my phone is like over here, like listening to me and looking stuff up. That's kind of creepy.
Now, Siri.
It's like Bigsby the phone was locked and it started looking stuff up. I don't know.
Big Brother's always listening.
Yep.
But what stood out to y'all? What were your favorite things about this episode? Because I do think this is, I'm still not just sold on the series. I think it's well made, but I'm still just kind of going. Now, of course, the next 6 episodes could totally elevate the whole thing, and I'll forget about it. It's kind of like with Rings. It's the last episode kind of took all the things I've been going, what are they doing? And going, holy crap. Okay, now I see what they were doing. So I mean, the next 6 episodes could elevate the whole thing to another level. But so, what are your favorite things about this episode?
You can go first, Chris.
I was saying from the beginning, the darkness, wanting to see more of the dark side of this, the real beginning of the rebellion. And I think we got that. We saw the good guys taking hostages. That was it's something that it's very gray area for what they have to do in order to get things done. The little bits of like I said before with Cassian and company marching in and seeing the other squad give them a look for a half a second that, I don't remember them being here. But obviously they're meant to be here. And that's just a simple look that they got.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, a lot of this gray area where, everybody's willing to do whatever it takes to get this done. Once they started their mission to go for this, they were willing to do anything. Kidnapping a kid, that's a crazy thing to have the good guys do. And it's that moral compass becomes a little jaded.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get the things done, in order for the rebellion to flourish, to give that spark of hope. Some real hopeless things have to happen, and
Right.
And that's what we were seeing. I really enjoyed that. Then of course, seeing 3 TIE fighters taking off after this cargo ship flying around. There's just something about a TIE fighter. I have about 50 of them around me. Those it's just that iconic look. So being able to see that was huge for me.
Yeah.
And it was just a really good ending to this story of finding Cassian and his arc in the first 3, and then the second 3 coming to this. He's still in it for himself, and he's not quite in it for the rebellion, but we're starting to see that he's seen the need for people like him. Yeah. And I think that manifesto that he walks away with is going to be the turning point to where he's going to read that and he's going to change his tune.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, as far as going back to talking about kind of the darker, the gray areas, I'm generally not a fan of exploring a lot of gray areas in my fantasy stories.
Right.
This is first and foremost a fairy tale. But I think that, like, if you really want to get into telling the war story, you have to, right? Like, this is the one place you have to talk about it, and because war is ugly.
Yeah.
And it's one. I may get canceled for quoting Robert E. Lee, but Robert E. Lee said it's well that war is terrible because otherwise we might grow fond of it.
Right.
And it's and there's a lot of truth in that, and it's so I do think that this is kind of the one place I'm willing to concede spending all of my time in the gray area is with the people in the trenches fighting the war, because there's just no real way to. It's like, I suppose you could do it and romanticize it, but I don't think that's necessarily like a good thing. Like, romanticizing violence in Star Wars, I don't think works.
Like having a show or a movie completely about Saw Gerrera would be a mistake, because you would be in it deep for the entire time. But to know that there are people like him and that he was a necessity in some aspect, it's a compelling story.
I kind of wonder if this standalone episode that we're fixing to get, or the 2-episode arc that's following that, if some of that's going to move over and explore Saw Gerrera, because we do know he's in this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wonder if we're going to go. I figure we'll do one up. I don't see us doing more than one episode with Saw.
He would be better off in that one-off episode.
But we might do 2 episodes aside with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and kind of the heads of the rebellion.
Right.
And then probably that last 3-episode arc will come back.
All about Perrin. Oh, I mean Cassian.
Okay, Perrin.
The Perrin stuff is like, did Josh start the?
Josh did. Josh brought up a great point where he was saying that, if the man was in Mon Mothma's position and this was going on, it would be his fault for being a neglectful father. And I rewatched some of the episodes and went, wow, there's a lot of sense here. She's being very secretive about this inside war that she's helping to fund, helping to direct that has taken her away from her family. And in her daughter's eyes, she's always about these charity functions. She's always about helping other people, but she's never around. And her father's sitting back and letting the daughter say these things because he feels neglected as well. So it turned from a joke to crap. He kind of has a point that, he's a pompous ass. He's living off of the empire. He's going to live to the station of a husband to a senator.
To all the bad
Absolutely,
people.
because he doesn't want to lose the lifestyle he's got. So of course he's a pompous ass. But at the same time, there is some legitimacy to being neglected by his wife and his daughter being neglected by her mother.
Well, I couldn't help myself when I saw Josh posting all those things, and I don't know if y'all noticed what I started doing. It's Jack Handy quotes,
right? Exactly. We were talking about this. The Deep Thoughts by Baron Mothma.
So I just have my phone. If somebody went through my phone right now, they'd be like, "What is wrong with you?"
One of the first apps you're going to see that I open all the time is Adobe Photoshop, and it's me just goofing around, and there's too much parent in there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got his Photoshop Express on my phone, and it takes me about 5 seconds to create one of those things.
Yep, or just go in the gallery, hit the text, make a meme. We're good.
Yep.
He annoys the crap out of me, though. He might be neglected because his wife is working all the time, but he has absolutely no problem spending the money. He doesn't even know who his driver is or any of his servants are. I mean, come on, dude.
He's fat and happy because of the Empire as well.
It's going to be interesting to see what role he plays at the end of this, though.
He's the hero we didn't know we needed.
Well, but who does he side with? Right. My suspicion is that he turns her in.
That's where I was thinking we might go as well, only because he is rubbing elbows with the top people to Palpatine. He's bringing in the top guys. So, and to the point where she's saying literally, these are the people that are fighting me every day in the Senate. And he's like, well, then be nice to them in the home and maybe they won't fight you so much. So he's oblivious to what she does, I think, as her job completely, as well as what she's doing as a somebody on the inside for the rebels.
Right.
I'm not going to say that.
Escape pod stands with parent. Brady made that meme and it was just perfect. He's like, here, I made this for your Twitter.
I definitely don't like him or enjoy seeing him, and what does he have to do with the story anyway? Why do we have to see him in the story anyway? But okay, maybe they're trying to show how the rebellion affects the family life. Okay, I'll take it at that. It's not something that I'm enjoying. What I did enjoy was tiny little Cyril's mama, teeny tiny little Cyril's mama, you baby, get up and get a job. And he's looking out the window, playing with his little blue Cocoa Puffs and singing all by myself, yeah, Cyril annoys me too, but I loved his mama. She would be an Italian grandmother or something today, little tiny Noni,
she's 100% meant to be that little Italian grandmother.
Calling up Uncle Carmine.
They didn't even kind of try to hide that.
No.
We're getting Cyril puffs.
Oh, man.
Holiday season coming, we're getting Cyril puffs.
If only they could have given her a Brooklyn accent or something, I would have fallen in love with her.
And they actually called him Uncle Carmine.
I don't think they called him Uncle Carmine. I'm just saying that. No. But because that's what it reminds me of. I grew up in an Italian family. So,
I think that's very intentional.
Yeah, Vader even says a little more old Jewish grandma type, I loved her, smack him again. Somebody smack him again. And yet this has nothing to do with the story. I'm trying to think of things that I liked about the heist. Besides the eye and the culture, I like the TIE fighters. I like that it was suspenseful in trying to see if anybody's going to make it out successfully. suspense is something that you usually don't get, because usually, you're like, they're going to make it out. Not a problem. And honestly, we don't know any of these characters. So we only know that Andor is, Cassian's going to make it out alive. So everybody else could have died. So there was that suspense of not knowing. That little flip at the end where can't remember the dude's name, but like Skeen. I'm so bad with names in this show. I like how like Cassian just shot him, and I'm like, yeah, like I want to see more of this, like, hasha, So I think those were all my favorites out of the episode.
Yeah, I'd agree with most of those. I mean, there are some good moments, but it's one of those things. Like, if I was rating this show, I would still rate it on the positive side. But I really need these next few episodes to elevate it.
Yeah. I do like it. But
so, where do y'all feel like this show falls right now in the hierarchy of Star Wars television?
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to say, like, I've heard from a lot of people being it's the best Star Wars we've gotten, but production wise, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
So far, the story has had me interested. There's been moments where I was on the edge of my seat. Yeah. I think there's a lot of play on words when it comes to the titling of these shows. Oh
yeah,
the eye.
The eye is the center.
Well, it meant several different, it meant several different things to me. The eye, the calm before the storm, the Imperial eye now being, opened to that there's something bigger going on. Yeah. So I'm hesitant to say it, but it definitely production wise, it blows away Boba Fett. It feels bigger than Mando does at times. So at least as far as the scope of the galaxy, this is a galaxy, not just a couple planets around the corner. So it's very high up there, and I'd like to see where we play out before I would say something as best since anything.
Yeah, no, that I agree completely with that. You'll find that I very rarely will rank something while it's sort of mid, like it's while it's in process, like because I do think that if the final 6 episodes are great, I might place it ahead of Mando. But 2 seasons of Mandalorian has given us an awful lot to love.
I love Mandalorian. But you see, I love The Mandalorian, and I really like the Book of Boba Fett, and I liked Kenobi, but I like them all for different reasons. So it's extremely hard for me to rank Star Wars against Star Wars when they're all very drastically different from each other.
They're almost like different genres. I mean, you have the Western in The Mandalorian, where there's a little bit of a tie over into Boba Fett is the same. Yeah. Kenobi wasn't that Western feel. That was, it was a heartbreaking show that, of him learning of what happened after.
Kenobi was post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Right.
That was,
and Andor is more of it is a bit of espionage spy game. And like I said, it's hard though, because plus we're 6 episodes in and it's only halfway. So that's huge. That we're getting more than just 6 episodes for a series. So already we're looking good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to throw in the other 2 series too, I mean, I don't know. I watched Rebels. I watched Clone Wars. What's the other one? Rebellion.
Resistance.
That was sorry, I didn't watch that one.
The only thing about Resistance is my kids didn't like it either.
Yeah,
it just didn't grab me. I'll try again in the future, because I always try again in the future. But just like those 5 series, extremely different from each other. So, and here's Andor, another series, extremely different from any of the other series. So,
it's. I'm curious to see where it's going to go. I mean, who is your favorite character at this point in the show?
Cyril's mom.
I mean, at this point, I'm still going to say that Luthen is the best character in this
Absolutely.
show.
Oh, I love Luthen. I absolutely love Luthen. Yes.
I only say Luthen because Luthen's ship is not a character just yet. We don't have a true name for his ship. Once it's named, that will be my favorite character.
Yeah.
That thing is, I am a fanatic when it comes to Star Wars ships and mechanics. I have 100 mini collection of the little Hot Wheels of every type, and seeing his ship was just so different. Coming at the trailers that we've seen, it obviously runs on Kyber, and that there is something going to happen where it looks like he's got a lightsaber that's coming out of the side of at some point in the trailers. So it's cool already, and looks like it's going to get even cooler.
I would love to see a whole episode just on Luthen. I mean, he's got different names. He's got different personalities. He's definitely hiding himself. Like, who are you, Luthen? You know, like, I want to know all about Luthen, you know? I think that would be cool.
Yeah, Luthen's going to be one of those interesting ones. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with the character, because obviously this is not a named character that we had being a big player in the events of the original trilogy.
Right.
Doesn't
or
necessarily
maybe
mean
he has a name in the original trilogy that we just don't know yet. I mean, the guy changes outfits. He wears wigs. You know, he has 2 different names already that we've heard about. Like, who is he? You know,
he could be Sauron for all we know.
Right?
God no.
Thank God Rings of Power ended. We don't have to go down that route. Definitely not Luthen.
Puts out a beard.
Yeah.
Yep.
At least he's not Papa Palps, so.
Yeah.
And we are looking at I mean, the Empire, their little ISB group, their little TED talk that they get over what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. They screwed up big time. When the Senate gets like Rose said, all their pages went off at once to let them know that the entire Empire bankroll was stolen. What happens when the higher ups screw up? Who does the Emperor send in? So, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we get a glint of Darth Vader showing up,
or an Inquisitor,
or I would think the higher ups, the admirals and stuff, and the captains screwing up would call in for the tall guy with the black helmet to come in and straighten some things out. So that would be.
Thrawn exists at this point, he is out there. I don't think we'll see him. We might hear a name drop. I think they're saving him for the Ahsoka series or for Mandalorian season 3. Definitely Mandalorian season 3. Definitely Ahsoka series. But he is out there. So who knows?
I don't see him showing up at this point in this just because I really don't think Tony Gilroy wants to bring in other characters.
I think he's going to steer away from the legacy characters, and that would be best.
I think so too.
I wouldn't mind it, but steering away from legacy characters is the better way to go.
But it's possible,
Right.
Just saying it's possible.
Now, characters that we could see at this point show up to fix the mess are people like Agent Callus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, because these ISB people are not the people running the ISB during Rebels, at least the people we see. So we could see some different people from the Filoni verse show up here, but I just don't. I think Tony Gilroy wants something that totally stands on its own, and for better or worse, I think there's something about that makes it feel to some people a little less Star Wars than other things. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. But I still think that if 6 episodes in the show ended, I would definitely not be able to rank it as high as Mando.
No. I would say it was nice, but it was short-lived. It really didn't serve a purpose. Other than give us a character that, honestly, Rogue One was great. I rank it as my second favorite Star Wars, right behind Empire Strikes Back.
Andor.
I did love, but I did not think Cassian was that interesting a character to have a show over until it started coming close to it showing up and seeing the trailers and me saying, wow, this is okay. Beyond just his character, what's going on in this time frame is compelling for me. It's a great time. It's right before, the Empire unveils the Death Star. The rebels getting the information about the Death Star. So I really enjoyed the movie Rogue One over this. So being in that time frame and leading up to that time frame, which they said that this show is going to bring us right to Rogue One.
Yeah.
We're definitely going to get a time jump between season 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a time jump within.
We might even get it this season.
I think we're going to time jump into this next episode. I would see it's not the same time frame.
Okay.
I think we're going to look back possibly when we see him, when we see Andor next. But like I said, it's for something I didn't really care too much about in the beginning when I heard about it to leading into it. I jumped on this hype train, and so far I'm satisfied. But we're only halfway.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm not enjoying it. I am enjoying it, but I'm not enjoying it as much as like if I was watching Porks Row.
You got to watch them so they don't burn.
Damn it!
You want them to turn over the fire in a nice,
right? Nice. Little honey glaze.
You guys are terrible.
We have a May the 4th party every year. And
we do too.
Several years ago, I roasted game hens.
Oh, no, they're just like porks.
Nice.
Of course, my kids thought it was funny, but their uncle every year on Easter, since they were real little, has roasted a rabbit.
No.
They were unfazed by roasting porgs.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of like how I grew up, where we grew up raising 3 pigs. They always got names, and we got another 3 pigs in the spring because they filled our freezers. So we always look differently on woodland creatures because they're beautiful. We take pictures of them until their season's up, and we don't take the pictures until they're hanging somewhere.
Rabbit.
That's why I'm kind of glad. Like, my kids are used to. I've never shied away from telling them where our food comes from. Most of it came from our lease.
Yeah.
We eat more wild caught food than we do store bought food, and it's so my kids learned pretty early on where food comes from. But we do currently have a cow, and I'm glad that it lives at my sister's house and not ours. It's like because I wasn't sure how they were going to handle their first time with yes, we have this animal,
this giant
that lives
animal
in the yard, and in a couple of years we're going to eat it.
Yeah, that's why we can't have farm animals, because like I keep telling DB, I'm gonna have to take care of them, and then they're gonna be my pets. And
pigs
then
were always a 7 to 8 month kind of thing, but when it came to beef, it was a year's kind of thing, and it took it's a little different when it came to that. But.
Deer meat's easier. You don't have time to get attached.
Deer meat's
very
easy. Kind of. I don't want to see the slaughter part.
Yep. I bring it in close to what it looks like in the store, as far as and then we process it down to smaller meals.
And that just went out of the water a few years ago. But DB will tell you a story later. So
But I see that Nicole did post over here that she thinks the name of the ship is the Fondor.
Yeah, from what I heard, it was the Fondor Hall craft is how it was stated up in one of the write-ups I saw. Right. It's from Fondor.
So that's the type of we're thinking that's the type of ship.
That's the type of ship. It's a Fondor Hall craft, or at least that's what it was based off of, anyway. Because
it's one of those things. They may or may not ever give it a name. Then
only because it is definitely. I was reading also that the ship is powered by Kyber, as well.
That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I have to ask you guys, back in Celebration, they told us of 2 Lego sets that were going to be released in August, which now it's October. They were probably released, but I don't remember. One was exclusively an Andor ship. Is that the ship that was released in August?
Not that I know of.
I don't think so.
Okay.
But I can't honestly remember what the 2 sets they told us we were getting were.
One was the little robot from
oh yeah,
the video game.
Yep.
I can't remember.
The Justifer. What was that?
What?
I clicked on one of them. It's called it's the ship that they're flying out.
Okay.
It's called the Justifer. Yeah.
And then BD1. We're getting that BD1 droid.
Oh, was it BD1?
Yeah.
Okay.
From Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes, it was BD1. Yeah.
So yeah, I did actually want that one. They showed that one off. It was a pretty cool looking set.
Yep. We had we joined in with the Salacious Rum Lego builds on Sundays, and one of the guys last couple of weeks had been building, and it's a very good looking set.
It's so cute.
I can't afford Lego sets.
No, neither can we.
So ridiculous, man. I mean, that and Funko Pops, that's where you put your money in over gold and silver.
And I grew up building Legos that there weren't sets. They were just
right. You just got a bag of Legos.
You just got a bag of Legos.
Right.
And
we have several buckets of those Legos still.
I'm pretty sure the first Lego set was a Star Wars set, and it was in like 97.
Right.
Oh.
It came out with the re-release of the original trilogy right before.
Oh yeah. Right.
Nice.
The ones I can afford are the bus, like the Red 5. I've got behind me the Stormtroopers. They're like $50. I was finding them for like $40. But when it comes to the ships and the AT-ATs, you're looking at starting at $400 or $500 for
we can't afford that.
That's too rich for my blood.
I usually build the models. I've got a huge stash of the Bandai,
right?
All the ships that I still need to finish building. I've built several of them, but I've got a bunch more I need to do.
That's where I started sinking mine in, is slowly buying paints and little pieces, so that way I can it'll be mainly model sets because Legos are too expensive.
Yep. Well, my next thing is I've got all kinds of armor I've got to start building for cosplay. So
nice.
I'm just about to start construct. I'm trying to find a helmet so I don't have to build one from scratch. I don't mind building the armor. I don't want to build helmets.
Right.
I don't mind painting them and doing the design work and all that, but making a helmet is a nightmare.
I bet.
I can only imagine.
Although the difficult part is finding kid sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I've got 2 that are technically kid size. They're still, they make them look like bobbleheads.
Right.
My oldest daughter is now, she's as tall as Marisha now. So hers fits her, but the other 2, they kind of look like bobbleheads.
Right.
But they're not as bad as they used to be. But I'm one short. So I've got to find the guy that I was buying that kind of stuff from he got sick and quit making the helmet. So I got to find a helmet, but all 3 kids want Mandalorian armor before the next con event, which is probably going to be January for us.
Right.
You're raising them right, Andrew.
A lot of years we don't necessarily do a lot of big vacations. Like we go to conventions.
Yeah.
Right. So we got to do a long weekend, and we sometimes do as many as 4 conventions a year, and it's a lot of fun.
I bet.
One day I'm going to get a whole Red 5 contingent over to Celebration.
Yes.
Not Celebration, Dragon Con. Celebration's cool. Dragon Con's way better.
Someday we'll get down there. Someday.
Dragon Con, the cool thing about Dragon Con, you can literally go to Dragon Con and do the whole 5 days as a Star Wars con if you wanted to.
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how big that's how big that one is. You can go do it as a military sci-fi con or things like Stargate. You can go do it
Stargate,
as, you
absolutely.
can go do it as a Star Trek convention. You can do it as a Star Wars convention. Heck, you can even do it as a NASA convention if you want to. One of the coolest things, they have a whole science track, and the year before COVID, they had a couple of NASA scientists that had access to several of the largest telescopes on the planet for the Dragon Con event. And so late at night, you could go hang out in there, and they were doing live shots from those telescopes.
You
awesome.
sunk me.
So I mean, it's one day I'm going to get a whole bunch of people down there to Dragon Con. It's it's a lot of fun. But I've got to build Mandalorian armor, and that's going to be my prelude to trying to build that Galadriel armor.
Oh, that's going to look great.
It's going to be so hard. I've already talked to somebody that built a set for Dragon Con, and it's going to take months.
I bet.
But it's going to be interesting to see if I can do it. I'm hoping to get into prop building, with them doing more and more movies around here. They don't have prop builders in Mississippi, so
that would be really cool, Andrew.
I did get to do digital work on something that filmed here recently. So
really?
Yeah, just a little bit. They got in a bind where they needed a graphic designer, and they were like, well, by the time we send this stuff to LA and they figure it all out, and it was like Marisha was like, my husband can do that, and I can make all the pieces on my equipment.
Right.
And so I was sitting here with no work. I got a phone call and got emailed a packet and started making stuff.
Awesome.
Very nice. Very nice.
All right, guys. Well, I think we're probably kind of wrapped up on Andor, and we will be back in about an hour and a half to talk about the finale for Rings of Power. And I think we're all really, really excited to talk about that one.
Totally.
I'm sure Nikki will probably find us in the chat again and tell us how we are a bunch of pretenders. But we're gonna pretend we know what we're talking about.
Oh, I forgot about her.
I should read all these books for the first time before we record in an hour and a half.
I don't know which one to start from. They're all over.
It's
like, it's like, getting accused of course, I answered one trivia question and she was immediately like, he knows what he's talking about. Why are you watching this stuff?
Right. Yeah.
We were called normies pretending to be nerds.
I've never been
That's the first time in my life
That's offensive.
somebody said I wasn't a nerd.
You called me normal? That is offensive, sir.
Normie.
Good stuff.
Why couldn't that have happened 35 years ago? School would have been a whole lot easier.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up. Before we wrap up, I want to definitely let y'all tell everybody where to find you, the podcast you're involved with, and what y'all have going on. So, Kelly, I'll let you start that.
Awesome. I do the social media for the Sidebar Cantina, who tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Eastern will be going live to talk about Andor episodes 4 through 6. I am also a co-host of Stranger Things Has Happened with Don Della Snooch from ATSW The Escape Pod, and we go live on Friday evenings at 7 p.m. We just started season 2 of Stranger Things, and this week we'll be doing episode 3 of season 2. So tune in.
Cool.
All right, and Dragon Buddy, what you got going on?
I'm with ATSW The Escape Pod, Wednesdays, 7:05. We were talking in our private chat today. We think we might be doing She-Hulk on Wednesday. We've all been pretty busy, and we just got back from our hiatus, and we're trying to change up some formatting with the show.
She-Hulk on Wednesday.
I know, I just said that.
I'm confirming it.
Okay, cool. So we're doing She-Hulk on Wednesday at 7:05, where pants are not required. You can come out and hang out in the chat, try to derail us. We're changing our format a bit. We're trying to be a little more free form, and really just looking to have a good time. We're a bunch of guys just want to hang out, where friends gather is how we coin the escape pod. So
they're very cursy.
And Friday looks like we will be opening the Red 5 Tavern back up.
Yes.
We're doing a one-off with Tom, who's joined us as our DM. He's got his own one-off story, the Shadows of the
Night of Shadows.
But so the tavern will be back open. We're going to get some D&D going.
I've got Friday it right here in the book. It is called Night of the Shadow Walkers, and Warbear will be DMing that. Myself, DB, Charles, Grant, and possibly maybe Nicole can confirm with me. The 5 of us are all going to be playing 9 p.m. Eastern on Friday at the Red 5 Tavern.
Awesome. What time?
9 p.m. Eastern. So 8 p.m. Row time.
On Row Standard Time.
Row Standard,
yeah. Actually, I think it's still daylight time, so Row Daylight Time.
Hashtag one world, one time zone.
Right. Yeah. As long as it's Chicago time. Keep it easy on one person.
Right.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can drop us a line at thesciencefictionary@gmail.com. You can also go over to our website, thesciencefictionary.com, where you can find a few articles, but you can also find links to all of our podcasts, our YouTube channel. You can also leave us, there's a little red button at the bottom of the screen on the website where you can leave us a voice message. And if it's relevant to what we're working on, then we may include it in the show. So definitely go over and check that out. You can also find our podcast as well as the rest of the Red 5 Network at Red 5 Network on Twitter and at bio.link/Red5, where you can find links to all of the Red 5 associated shows and all of the individual podcasts. Because Red 5 has several things going on all by itself now.
Yes.
So you definitely that's definitely the easiest place to go find all the stuff. Thank you to everybody that joined us in the chat.
Thank you.
I know Nicole and Matt Vader and Chantel and Ro and Michelle and I know there was some Josh was in there. And if I forgot you, I'm very sorry, but thank you so much for dropping in.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, may the force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.